This video will serve as a further elaboration, a sort of deep dive into what exactly prices are and what they do. As was discussed in the previous video, prices first come about as a result of exchange operations, given that both parties require an incentive to remove a felt unease. Prices then serve as a correspondent mechanism, or tool, which help guide the production and provision process to best serve the endmost consumer of the capital structure. Prices are a behavioral phenomenon. They are the resulting figures of scarcity and incentives drawn to rid oneself of scarcity. When we hear about prices in Econ 101, we typically hear that prices are formed as a result of the supply and demand relationship. This is correct. This is because the supplier and the consumer are essentially looking to profit. And for the producer side to profit, necessarily, the consumer must profit in their consumption. Therefore, the producer must adhere to the desires of the consumer in forming and adjusting their prices to ensure desired levels of consumption occur. This shows us that demand largely guides economical affairs in a market economy, with the entrepreneur being the bottom up approach of answering the consumer's many evolving desires. It is rather general, but true to say, that prices are helping inform prospective and active entrepreneurs onto the consumer's desires. More specifically, though, prices are telling entrepreneurs who are incurring risk via investment what raw materials and what labor is necessarily valuable. Take a car, a screwdriver, and some cleaning materials. All of these things serve many different ends. This in economics is known as the heterogeneous nature of goods, or in simpler terms, multi-specific. All of these are means which can be employed to generate consumer goods and can be consumer goods themselves. They all require labor and specific materials to be transformed into what they are. Prices of producer goods, the very top of the capital structure, tippity top now, help tell the entrepreneur how to best allocate resources. Prices are informing the entrepreneur about the screwdriver, for instance. The material costs indicating that they have a matrix or system of inputs and outputs to produce a cost effective material for what it will be sold for. When the screwdriver goes to market, a true test of the endmost product delivered is carried out as consumers either refrain from purchase or commit to it, indicating whether that use of the scarce material and labor was a valuable devotion or not. Because goods are multi-specific, prices are essential in determining a good's best use on the part of those who desire it for the removal of felt unease. Austrian economist Ludwig von Mises highlighted the imperative of market prices in his work Calculation in the Socialist Commonwealth, where he described the command economy as inept, incapable of rational production operations, as they lacked market prices. This is known as the ECP, the economic calculation problem. The problem itself has been validated multiple times, but the most interesting case study was the USSR, a managerial command system wherein the state gave quotas to public monopolies. While the means and the knowledge of how to produce things was indeed there, the lack of mutually stipulated relationship and its information mechanism, prices, led to confused over and underproduction, alongside a great deal of waste. Unlike the market economy, wherein largely firms are acting in tandem with consumer desires, as such offers a profitable avenue of symmetrical gains, public monopolies of the Soviet state had no real mechanism to gain meaningful production information from the consumer. This led to chandeliers that regularly destroyed ceilings, roof and massive car shortages, shoes that rarely fit correctly, and television sets that had a good chance of exploding. Let's say I want to start a business wherein I provide chairs as the entrepreneur. I need to organize capital relationships, labor, and analyze prices if I want to seriously compete with firms of a similar kind. I have to justify my prices if they are higher than a nominal competitor, and I must allow my prices to evolve as I test their usefulness in the market. If there is no conditional desire for my chairs, then my price would be trending towards zero, and my production initiative would likely stop, given that I can no longer afford to fund the labor and raw materials necessary to make chairs. This would show a misallocation on my part and allow my competitors and future firms a freeing up of raw materials and labor that I no longer demand. This shows that prices, being a part of the stipulative element of consumer relationships, implies correction in the aim of combating scarcity, as it designates resources with the most practical method of engaging and working to achieve maximal conditional utility. The prices are telling entrepreneurs where there's room to grow and what not to do. Many of these elements the command economy does not possess, as it implies unilateral production relationships not corresponding with most consumers' desires. The difference is stark and important. As one shows us the fruits of understanding the importance of adhering to the reality that human aims are subjectively arrived at and ever changing, and thusly need a self correcting system capable of evolving alongside these desires with incentives and scarcity at the forefront of the process. Humans are individuals, and we are going to have different aims based on different perspectives, different upbringings, and different natural capacities. That's not to say that we don't have similar beliefs or we don't have similar attitudes towards certain things, but it is to say that we are going to go in different directions in life and want different things. The best way to embrace that is the market economic order. And the best way to actually have that work is the pricing system. This isn't scripted or anything. This is just me speaking naturally. A great thing to understand in life is that prices, while they are made up, they are generated things that come from our mind. They're not like, you can't touch a price necessarily, right? It's great to know that prices are meaningful in that they're trying to guide us, right? Now, prices do guide consumers to some extent, right? We use them in certain ways, not hoard, all of that. But ultimately, prices are, that consumer, the vast majority of people out there are consumer workers, right? That's like consumers and workers play the major role in the economy of guiding it. Entrepreneurs have to listen to it. It changes the entire power dynamic we're commonly told about, right? Where entrepreneurs are just these greedy, evil people that control everything. But in reality, entrepreneurs, it's their prerogative to adhere to consumer desires. Even if media doesn't often convey that, that's it. At the end of the day, as a person who's becoming like a businessman, myself, and as just a normal person, everyday consumer, I used to somewhat resent, like, the entrepreneurial mindset or the idea that businessmen were at all virtuous. And I don't believe everyone's virtuous who goes into business. But I certainly do understand why the capital structure is there. And I understand how our decisions do impact prices. And the common myth is that we need government to come in and intervene and prevent these gougings of prices and collusions and all of that and competitive pricing. But that's a lot of BS. And I intend to show that with the rest of the praxeology course. Because these things are organic elements of human society. They aren't make believe in the sense that we can live without them. Prices are necessary. The capital structure based on the entrepreneur, worker, and consumer dynamic is really necessary for human prosperity. There's tons of empirical evidence that asserts this, and a lot of logic and theory. Um, but that's what I want to convey in the next few video sessions, I guess. Um, and I want to thank everyone who's supporting me right now with this. It's a little hobby of mine. Yeah, and I think I've talked long enough. Hopefully the doodles aren't too confusing here. Yeah. All right. See you next time, guys.